Comedy Film Nerds Podcast.
Let's talk about The Disaster Artist.
Okay.
This was a really, really fun film, a passion project for James Franco. And, you always run the risk when you do a biopic, especially someone who is around and still alive, that there's the...
and crazy.
But
a crazy genius.
Yes.
Someone who's also a crazy genius.
Yeah, you run the risk of parody, and you run the risk of you're just doing a caricature of this character, but
yeah, like
I'll
an
tell
SNL sketch. It's going to be like an SNL sketch. He's just going to be doing a wacky voice.
But man, James Franco, he just nailed it.
I know.
He channeled the character. Like we were talking earlier about the Jim Carrey movie, Jim and Andy,
right?
And the way he had channeled Andy Kaufman, where I really felt like this was the same thing, where he really just got into this character. The difference is Tommy was Wiseau.
Sure.
It doesn't matter.
One of those.
He's still alive and was present, on the set periodically. So,
yeah, it is an interesting comparison because the Jim and Andy. For those who don't know, Jim and Andy is this documentary. It's on Netflix, and it's Jim Carrey when he made Man on the Moon. In the 90s, he had a documentary crew because he just was Jim Carrey. He became Jim Carrey, and he became Andy. He became Jim Carrey. He became himself. It was weird.
Yeah, it's weird how much Jim Carrey was like Jim Carrey.
It was dead on. It was
perfect.
Scary. It was
Guy's
like
a genius.
He's so brilliant at playing himself. He was playing Andy Kaufman, and now I'm blanking on the name of the nightclub character that Tony Clifton. And so he would, so there's in this documentary, which I suggest watching, you see him and Jim Carrey then. The documentary is showing this footage from the 90s, but also like Jim Carrey today talking about it, saying, I just channeled Andy Kaufman. I just became him. And you see him like being this dude on the set. So it's very relatable because James.
Oh, like he was, okay, so there's two types of acting, right? There's method acting where you're that character all the time. Mm-hmm. Was it like that, or was he just like so into the role that you just... It
was method acting, but like times 10. Like,
okay.
So he's as Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman is fighting, like antagonizing Jerry Lawler, between takes, like in the makeup room, to where Jerry Lawler is like, hey, and goes after him. Like, I'm going to kick your ass. And the cast is like, Jim, what do you do? Like, enough. Like, so it was kind of crazy, but also he's like, hey, I just channeled him. And then I think so going as Chris was saying with The Disaster Artist, you really got the feeling, and apparently James Franco was staying in character, between takes. And as we talked about on the spoiler up, he would kind of have to, because just from a technical standpoint, this guy, Tommy Wiseau's crazy accent, he says he's clearly Eastern European, but he says he's from the Bayou.
Right, New Orleans.
You're right.
You can't just like turn that on and off like a comedic voice, like just hello, and then talk in your regular voice or whatever. So I think James Franco did an amazing.
He did, and he stayed in character while he was shooting the movie. And what I like too is just kind of like, Tommy Wiseau. He wrote The Room, he directed it, he starred in it, where, James Franco starred in Disaster Artist. He, I think he co-wrote it but he also directed and starred. So it was the kind of parallel that I think was needed and important to make this movie. Like, I feel like if someone other than James Franco, like this movie could have been like a big studio noted disaster. It really could have been like a big budget studio comedy that got watered down and like made no sense and was.
If they made it as a comedy, it would have been awful.
Right.
Because the comedy in it
comes from the character.
The character, this guy. I mean, I don't know if you know much, Leah, about The Room. You ever see that billboard? How long have you been living in L.A.?
About 4 years.
Okay. So probably
you missed the billboard days.
You missed the billboard days.
Aww.
There was this crazy billboard for The Room. And
it was up for years.
Years on Highland.
Years.
And everyone was
Really?
like, what is this?
What is this movie?
What is this?
It's
And
never playing anywhere. You know, there's occasionally a midnight screening, and that
it was like an RSVP for screening, and there's this creepy dude's face on it, and you're like, what is this? And so it became sort of a joke and a punchline. And then people started to go, well, I'm going to go to some of the screenings. And the movie is so bad, it's amazing. Like,
and it developed a cult following. Like then, you know, a
Okay.
bunch of
Just from a billboard they wouldn't take down.
yeah.
Wow.
$5,000 a week. $5,000 a week.
That's $250,000 a year, and it was up
Yeah.
for
Just-
years.
Just for a billboard?
Just
Yeah.
for a billboard.
Just for a billboard.
The budget on this film was $6 million, and
Yeah.
it does not show up on screen at all.
No.
Sometimes I wonder if we took all the money out of advertising, how much we could fix in America. If like we were just like, okay, no ads for 1 year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just have to hear about it from your friends. Sorry. That's-
Yeah.
Anyway,
no, people
sorry.
would be too educated.
Yes. Sorry, $250,000 on a giant billboard is like.
Next
Yeah.
crazy thing you're going to say, what if we cut the military budget and actually put it into the infrastructure?
No.
No.
You know what? As a veteran, I'm for that.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's the story behind this film. So it was such a weird, and I don't know that a big studio ever would have made it because it was such a like L.A. thing. But then the screenings in L.A. started to spread. So now there's screenings all over the world of this movie because it has become in the internet. Obviously, people
Right.
talk about it on the internet. So it's like if you Google worst movie ever, boom.
It comes up.
This comes up.
Yeah.
This comes up. There's a movie called The Divination, I believe, which is this Irish martial arts movie.
And I think Ishtar.
Oh,
Ishtar.
I love Irish martial arts.
It's
Yeah.
it makes no sense.
It's as good as Irish wine.
It
you know
is.
what I'm
It
saying?
is. It is. It's and then there's Miami Connection, which is another fantastic movie. Which
Talk about that on the spoiler app.
Oh, Miami Connection is so great. But that's the thing about this film. I mean, it's really the acting in it. All the supporting characters are great.
It's a great passion project, and what I like too is it was really James Franco's baby and his voice, and it really it didn't feel like there was. I felt like that was the movie he wanted to make. Like I didn't feel like, oh gosh, that's where there was a studio note, or that's where the distributor wanted to change something. It really felt like it was his movie.
It was his thing, yeah. And he hires his brother Dave to play the
Right.
the guy Mark. That's actually the Greg Sestero, or I don't know how to pronounce that name, but the actual guy. It's really awesome. It's
They've actually never worked together or appeared on screen together until this film.
Really?
Yeah. They've been keeping it separate.
I think I
As
did.
long as we can form another connection for the Kevin Bacon game, that's the important part.
That's the key. That's what having the Franco boys together on screen does. It really makes the Bacon game that much easier. But yeah, so I would do some research about The Room
Before you go see
before
the
you go
movie.
see. I don't know that you need to see The Room. That would help. But I think you gotta. I think there is. If you just go in cold or blind on this film, you might.
You'll like it, but I think you'll like it more if you have a little more background.
Knowing and what they show you is the process of making the movie and how crazy it was and how crazy Tommy Wiseau was to kind of deal with. So when you know the final product is nuts, it's insane.
Wow.
And then it makes the movie that much better, I think. So check it out and then listen to the spoiler up
Yes.
with Rosie Tran.
Ride shot first, getting heads across the land. You're waiting for the show.